Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Clear Insights podcast, a podcast brought to you by your friends at the Clarity Coalition. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing again a friend who is just an advocate for everything that I support, whether it's LGBT rights, women's rights, the rights of religious and ethnic minorities in the Middle East. She is that person. I would like to introduce you guys to Sara Ghorbani. Sara, how are you doing today?
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Michael. I really appreciate it. And just wanted to say likewise.
Thank you. Thank you. So, before we get into the heavy stuff, my first question is, who are you and what should people understand about your journey?
I'm an ex-Muslim, first and foremost. That's a big part of my identity. I was born and raised in the Islamic Republic of Iran, a second year of an 8-year war with an Arab country. That also formed who I am and added to the traumas that I'm carrying today with me. From age 6, they put me in hijab, and they told me that I'm half a man, and I have to follow men in my family, and I am carrying the honor of the family. So from age 6, it was like indoctrination that I had to fight because it made no sense for me to be half a man. Why was I half a man? And I was worth half my brother. It made no sense to me, even at such a young age. And it was always struggle, resistance, oppression, being told to be silent, not to speak up, not to sit upright, not to be loud, not to attract attention, because it's always dangerous. And then when I left Iran, I went to Dubai for a couple of years, and I realized that it's the same thing. It's a little bit more polished, a little bit more shiny, but it's the same kind of apartheid, same kind of mentality. You are not one of us. You're not enough. You're not human. And then I came to Canada and I tried to talk about my experience because a lot of people are very keen on mental health issues here. They talk about their identity. They are very inclusive. They talk about accepting everybody. And instantly I was called Islamophobic. I was silenced and I was called a racist. I was called fascist, extremist, everything you can think of. And all I was doing was talking about my trauma. And it made no sense. So I was silent for the longest time. And then Mahsa Amini was murdered. And that's where my life really started. I started speaking up. I realized that being silent is not enough. Being afraid is not enough. Wanting to be included is not enough. And for the longest time, I was alone in my struggles. And when I started speaking up, I realized that there are other people who are ex-Muslims. There are other people who are writing about this. There are other people who are speaking up. I'm not alone. I'm not insane. It's not my fault. And the discovery was liberating. So these are all the people that I am all at once, because now I can speak up. I can call myself an activist without feeling ashamed and feeling like, oh, it's too much of a title. I cannot carry it. I speak up for people like me who were born and raised into a trauma and were told that it's not acceptable to talk about it, not even in the West. It's a very roundabout way of saying I'm a woman from a Middle Eastern country that is very Islamic and very oppressive, and I'm trying to raise awareness about that.
How do your lived experiences shape your worldview? And how do your lived experiences play a role in what you do at the Clarity Coalition?
Clarity Coalition was like a lifeline because it's a combination of Muslims and ex-Muslims, Jews, Christians, atheists. It's an amalgamation of everybody. And it's, I think, the only one in this world that welcomes people based on the fact that we want to fight extremism and we want to fight for everybody's right to speak. And I've said this oftentimes that I want to have the right to offend. And it feels like Clarity is the only place that understands my need to offend, my desire to offend, because I think that's the epitome of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of thought. I need to be able to offend people in order to learn and in order for people to learn and to move on. And it feels like when I talk about my experiences as an ex-Muslim who cannot accept Islam in my life anymore, I'm still accepted just as much as the Jews in the coalition, just as much as Muslim reformists in the coalition. And to me, that's very important because I talk about how Islam has shaped who I am, the trauma that I carry within me. And it's not just me, it's millions of women like me in Iran. It's millions of women worse than me in Afghanistan who do not have a voice. And it feels like now I can have a voice with clarity. I can talk about these issues and I don't feel like I'm alone and it's just me against a world that doesn't understand.
It's funny that you bring up, wanting to be able to offend, because I say repeatedly that if we really want to see progress with Muslim communities have to be okay with, you know, people taking shots at their religion and not reacting violently. Nobody is saying that you have to smile at what they say. You are entitled to be offended, but what you are not entitled to do is react violently and take away people's rights because you got offended. Um, and I think it's so important, but I also feel like the West offers a solicitude to Islam that it does not offer any members of any other religion. Every other religion gets made fun of. They don't have to like it, but they move on and deal with life. In what ways have the problems that you experienced in Iran followed you to the West where you live today?
That's a very interesting question. We have World Hijab Day in Canada. And to me, every February 1st, I get re-traumatized. How dare you? You are celebrating something for which Iranian women have been murdered. And it's not us exaggerating. Iranian women were shot at, blinded. They were shot at their genitals. They were shot at their body parts. Like, we have people who are still alive and they are witness to this situation. We've been fighting for 47 years to have the right to choose not to wear hijab. And they have celebrations for hijab as if this is something empowering. And it makes no sense to me. They talk about Islamophobia. And to me, it's not a phobia. Phobia is an irrational fear. We've talked about it so often. It's just, they talk about how you're Islamophobic if you criticize Islam. Then how would Muslims come to the 21st century if you don't let me criticize them? If you don't let me point out what the problems are with the gender apartheid? Why are we less than other people in the world? To me, that's insulting. If you do not allow me to criticize my own religion into which I was born, my own religion into which I was dehumanized and traumatized, we will never get better. And it feels like the way they are pampering Muslims in the West right now, the way we are not allowed to talk about the fact that Muhammad married a 6-year-old. We are not allowed to talk about this. There's hadith about this. And every time I talk about it, it's just completely denied, or there are a bunch of fallacies that are brought up that I'm silenced through. And I'm like, if you do not want to accept the premise that there are problems with this religion, there's no way you can reform it. There's no way you can improve it. There's no way women will be free in this religion. There's no way you will have LGBT people who are actually LGBT within the Muslim community. Because if they come in and say, I'm LGBT and I'm Muslim, I start laughing. It's a joke. You can't be both. It's impossible. They will stone you to death. They will throw you off the rooftop. There are rooftop parties. That's what they call it, rooftop parties for LGBT people. And then people come in and try to whitewash it or pick me. They think that if they do this, the same thing won't happen to them. They think that they don't understand the violence that is inherent in the religion and needs to be reformed. And it's something I hope Clarity will be able to do through time. But even the Muslim reformists in Clarity get death threats. They get fatwas on their heads. Look, how are we supposed to make things better? And I'm not allowed to make things better for my own people in the West. Like the fact that right now Iran is at war with the Islamic regime. The war I'm talking about is the war people have in Iran with the Islamic regime. And the Westerners, especially liberals, leftists, people who are very progressive in their ideologies, are chanting right outside on the streets here in Toronto, IRGC, IRGC, make us proud. How does that even, it doesn't compute in my head. There are times that I give up hope. I'm like, why am I even doing this? Because this is the Western world that has dehumanized my people to the point that people who are killing us, people who killed 43,000 of us 2 months ago, are cheered on out on the streets. I'm not even going to get into the fact that there are IRGC members living in Canada. Between 700 to 3,000, different numbers, different statistics, are living in Canada. But this country is doing nothing about it. Nobody has been, and IRGC is assigned a terrorist group in Canada. Not one member was deported. So what's the point? It's just a signed paper? And I don't feel safe. We have activists getting murdered here in Canada. Masood Masjoudi was an activist who was murdered 50 days ago in Vancouver. And they are now talking about that we found parts of his body, and we are doing some investigations to see what happened and who killed him. So there's real danger, and I work under my own name. I tell everybody I'm here in Toronto. It's not difficult for people to find me if they want to find me. And I offend Muslims continuously, deliberately. And there was for a period of about maybe 2 or 3 days when Masood Masjoudi's name came up when they said he was murdered and they found his body parts. I was thinking that was so stupid of me to use my own name in a Western country and to trust them to take care of me, because they won't. They'll definitely won't.
They won't. We have seen time and time again, especially in the UK, where they just cave into the more violent side. They don't want problems. They want to buy calm at any cost. And it's a shame, because we are witnessing the erosion of liberal values in real time in the West. This is taking place in the West. This isn't taking place in Afghanistan or Syria or Yemen. This is in the USA, Canada, Australia, the UK. It's just sad all around. We're going to get more into what the West could have done better and, their shortcomings. But you mentioned Mahsa Amini earlier. And I remember you said that you sort of said that there was the life you knew before Mahsa Amini, and then there was a shift afterwards. Could you describe that a little bit more?
Before Mahsa Amini, and also I should mention, her full name is Gina Mahsa Amini, but we refer to her as Mahsa Amini because the world knows her. They don't know her Kurdish name, so we make it easier for the world. It's one of the things that maybe we shouldn't do because we keep accommodating the Western world. But before Mahsa Amini, for me, it was mostly thinking the problem is within me. I don't understand. I come from a third world country. I'm a woman. I've been half human my whole life. Maybe I don't understand. Maybe Islam really is a feminist religion. Maybe I learned it wrong. Maybe hijab is empowering. I have to sit down here, wait for these Westerners who are very well educated to teach me what the problem is. How can I not be Islamophobic when I talk about it? They're going to educate me. And I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and nothing happened. There was no way they could explain it to me for it to make sense to me. However they tried, it still was oppressive, it was dehumanizing, it made no sense to me. There's no way they can explain the gender apartheid away. And it's a gender apartheid. I'm half a man. I'm 43 years old, and I have a legal guardian. I have a male legal guardian. If I go back to Iran, he can keep me there. That male guardian is either my father, my husband, if I don't have a father or husband, my brother, my uncle. Somebody will be my male guardian for the rest of my life. And I'm a fairly intelligent woman. I've been working since I was 19. I have a master's in English language and literature. I'm not an invalid, and I still have, my mom has a male guardian, my grandmother has a male guardian, and I waited for years for them to explain this to me. Why is this necessary? Why is this acceptable? And then Mahsa Amini was murdered, and I realized I really don't care anymore. I honestly don't want to be included. I don't care if I'm offensive. I don't care if it doesn't make sense. I don't care if the West doesn't understand. I just don't care. That was the moment that I gave up trying to fit into that square hole, that square hole that they have for me. And I realized that I don't fit here. I'm tired of explaining to my therapists what Islamotrauma is and being told these are doctors, PhD holders. My therapists who are supposed to help me come in and say, oh, thank you for educating me, Sarah. I really appreciate. It's not my job to educate mental health people to help me. And that's when I realized I'm giving up. I'm done. I'm not trying to appease anybody anymore. I'm not trying to be kind anymore. I'm not trying to be inclusive anymore. I'm done. And that's when I joined Twitter. And if you've been on Twitter, it's a brutal word. Nobody cares. It's not like Instagram. It's not like the other social media platforms. People come in, they talk, they leave. They don't care. And that was a very interesting experience because I started to connect with people who were like me. People who understood my language, people who understood my experiences, people who knew what Mahsa Amini means to us. All I have to do is say Neda Agha Sultan. There is about 20 people who write back to me instantly because they know what that name signifies. There are words, there are sentences that become infamous because these are the last words of people who were murdered by the Islamic regime. These are the messages that are left by them. These are messages that are people who were around these people said. And all I have to say is, Neda, stay. Neda, don't go. And everybody knows I'm talking about the video of her getting murdered. There's no need for me to explain. People know. So this is my tribe coming in. And I felt like I'm not insane. I belong. There is something wrong with the Western world that needs to be clarified, that needs to be corrected if they want their liberal laws and liberal values to survive. Because if I stay silent and if everybody stays silent, the way they're going is going to be the Islamic Republic here in the West. And it felt like that's the moment that I woke up. That's the moment that I tried not to be so kind anymore. I was angry. I'm angry. I'm an angry woman. And I embraced that part of myself and I started talking about it. Mahsa Amini pushed a lot of us out of our comfort zones and out of our silences. And she's a code name for a lot of us. That's why Woman Life Freedom right now is not just a slogan. Woman Life Freedom, that was something that was immortalized with Jina Mahsa Amini. It's a way of thinking for us. It's a social awakening. The whole society woke up with her. We realized that we have dignity and we deserve to have dignity. And if they don't afford it to us, we'll get it by force. We won't sit down anymore. We won't be silent anymore.
You stated just a few moments ago about how, the survival of liberal values in the West is important to you. What are the unique challenges that Islam poses to the West in this regard?
There are many different ones. Number one is the intolerance that comes with Islam that nobody talks about because they think if they don't talk about it, if they hide it, it will go away. The violence that is inherent in Islam is not understood in the West. They think if they are civilized about it, if they can educate people about it, if they can be kind about it, it will just, they have this delusion in the West that the only reason we experienced what we experienced is because we were not kind enough, we were not inclusive enough, we were not nice enough about it. And they think, and I think it's part of the white savior complex that comes in. They think that if they are just kind and nice and accepting and soft, the same thing that Islam did to us will not happen to them. They have this lens through which they look at everything. This is the Western lens. People who are born and raised in the West do not understand the reality of the Middle East. They don't understand Islamic colonialism. They don't understand slavery that happened through Islam. Because the white people didn't do it, it didn't happen to them. And that's one of the biggest, for me, that's one of the biggest pitfalls, because I have to educate them about this world that exists outside them. And they don't get it. So I have to center everything around them, around their experience. I have to explain to them that Khamenei is like Hitler for them to understand that Khamenei is bad. And incidentally enough, there are pictures of Hitler going up in Tehran with quotes that they created by him. And they have Khamenei's son's picture, the new supreme leader's son, the new supreme leader's pictures on top of Hitler's pictures. And if you talk about fascism in the West, it's easy for them to understand. But when we talk about Islamofascism, they don't get it. They don't understand how right-wing and how conservative Islam is. They don't understand how fascism is embedded in the religion. They think it's a religion. They don't understand that Christianity has gone through this whole age of enlightenment and awakening and secularism. They think it's the same thing about Islam. And they don't understand that Islam is stuck in the 7th century. They find it offensive to talk about it. They think not being offensive is a priority to freedom. And unfortunately, being kind, being nice, being inclusive is not going to save them, because these liberal values are being used against them. That's the other problem. Muslims, jihadis, people who want to take over the world, they are using these liberal values against people in the West. They're using progressive language. They create the word Islamophobia because phobia bad, homophobia no, so Islamophobia bad. And nobody thinks about why not? I criticize Christianity. I criticize Judaism. God knows Jews criticize Judaism. Why can't I criticize my own religion? And Westerners seem to be blind to all these different aspects of the problems. And sometimes it becomes really exhausting, Michael. It feels like, why are we trying? Why am I trying? I already survived it. I'll survive it again. I know what's coming. But the fact that they don't understand and they are adamant that they don't want to understand because they think they know better.
You you brought up, you know, educating people in the West about what goes on back home and what it means to be traumatized by Islam, Islamo trauma. One of the things that I've noticed is that as much as it is a, you know, a bit of an obstacle to educate the West, a bigger obstacle is debunking the bullshit that a lot of these Westerners have become indoctrinated with, sorry, by their Muslim peers, by their Arab and Muslim and leftist peers. And so, one of the things that I see come up a lot is when you bring up the law of mandatory hijab in Iran. An apologist almost always comes out and says, "Well, it's not even enforced." What do you have to say to some stupid statement like that?
I was put into, I wish I had that picture. I was 6 years old when they put me in hijab. If I wanted to go to school, I had to wear hijab. And we know that the age of maturity for girls in Islam is 9. But in Iran, you are 6 years old, you're going to school, you wear hijab. You go outside the house, you wear hijab. If you have people who are not mahram to you, which is people who are related to you by blood, your uncle, your grandfather, your father, your brother, you have to wear hijab. And it's not just wearing hijab. You have to cover your hands up to here. You have to cover your legs. You have to cover your body, and you have to wear loose clothing. I can't even wear a t-shirt because my hands and my arms are showing, and that's not acceptable. My neck should not be showing. And it's not like my parents would beat me. They wouldn't. But there are parents who enforce it by beating their girls. We've seen videos everywhere. Women in Afghanistan cannot stand next to a window. Women in Afghanistan cannot look at the road through two eyes. They have to cover one of their eyes. Like, the fact that they are covered in this burlap sack is not enough. They can't even look at the road through both eyes. It's in the Quran that says you have to have your women covered. If they are good, modest women, you cover them so that Muslim men know these are the women you do not assault. These women who are not covered, they are assaulted because they are not Muslim. They are open season. Go at it. That's the mentality. Even if it's not Iran, even if it's not Afghanistan. I was in Dubai. The number of times I was approached by security guards at the mall, my male Arab teachers, colleagues at the school, people who would just approach me on the streets to tell me, why are you not covering? Aren't you Muslim? Because they look at my face and they know I'm Middle Eastern. I'm not European. And at the same time, there are women in tank tops walking right by. Nobody cares. Nobody's there to say anything to them because they're blonde and blue-eyed and they're Westerners. There is this law in Islam that, number one, you cover up, you are modest as a woman. Number two, if you see somebody is doing something that would lead the ummah to hell, you stop it. Because you have to enjoin everybody to do good and forbid them to do evil. That's one of the tenets of Islam. As Muslims, you are responsible for the ummah. So there's this mentality of everybody around you turning into spies, telling on you, forcing on you to follow the laws, and it just becomes suffocating. There's a point that you realize that I follow, I submit, because that's what they want. From a young age, you're stigmatized, you're coerced, you're brainwashed, you're forced, you are beaten, you are lashed, you're imprisoned. Quite recently, you get murdered, you get shot at. Iranian women, right now, you see a lot of videos of them walking around with their hair showing, t-shirts. Sometimes they even have skirts on. And people are like, okay, so there's no hijab anymore. No, there's still hijab. There's still morality police. And morality police is something that people, again, another concept that people don't understand. There have always been morality police vans, people, women in chador, men in uniforms, who would arrest you and take you to the center to be re-educated. And we all knew at a very young age that if they take you, you might not come back. They could marry you off, you could be trafficked, they could rape you, they would definitely assault you to teach you your place in society. And morality police is still at work in Iran. So every single woman who goes out not wearing that hijab is still resisting, is still fighting back. Every time I talked to a friend once about this, about how I would heal, what would heal me. And I started crying and I said, going back to Iran, taking off my hijab and dancing on the streets. That would heal me. That would help me stop. I would not be angry anymore. I would not feel like I have to prove anything. I would not feel like I'm half a man. I would not overcompensate. I would heal. And it's something Iranian women are doing now. But every time I see a video of a woman dancing on the street, burning their hijab, I cry. It touches something here. It's a feeling I'll never experience on the streets of my own country.
It's indescribable what Iranians go through and what Iranian women go through. You know, to live in Iran in and of itself right now is unfortunately a prison for Iranians. But then for Iranian women, It's like there's a special section of that prison where they have their unique challenges, and it's so heartbreaking. What is different about this regime that separates it from other regimes in the Middle East, and in a lot of ways they're similar, but in other ways they are different. This regime is willing to do anything to maintain power, which is why when you fight against this regime, you're not actually labeled a traitor. You're labeled a muharib, someone who fights against God. And the supreme leader in Iran is supposedly divinely guided. They are waiting for the hidden imam to appear. I don't know. It just seems like he's playing peekaboo with the ummah, but they're waiting for him to appear. But until he appears, the supreme leader is basically a placeholder for them. They are divinely inspired. And so to go against his authority is the equivalent of going against God. And for the audience, if you want to know just how evil this regime is, I encourage you to look into the story of Hassan Pakravan. I think I'm pronouncing his name right. He was the former chief of the Savak, which was the Shah's secret police. And unlike many of the other chiefs of the Savak, he was a bit more humane. He had actually ended the practice of torture in the Savak, or at least greatly scaled it back. He convinced the Shah to not execute Khomeini, instead to place him on house arrest. This man would actually visit Khomeini while Khomeini was on house arrest and have lunch with him. He thought that they had developed a cordial friendship based on respect and Pakravan's compassion. When these people took power, Pakravan was among the first to be executed. Among the first. So, just for anybody who's wondering how bloodthirsty and how vicious this regime is, they are willing to burn everything down. They don't care about Iran. Khomeini himself said he had no use for patriots. This is a death cult in the fullest sense of that term. Um, Now I want to move on to Iranians abroad. Now,
Before you do that, I want to also mention a couple of statistics. Sorry about that. We are in March right now, 2026. They murdered more than 500, they have executed more than 500 people in January and February. And that's executions. They had time to execute people, more than 587 people in January and February this month, while they were oppressing and murdering people on the streets and going from hospital room to hospital room, shooting at the wounded. They executed 2,054, and these are the official numbers. I'm not talking about the people who were disappeared. I'm not talking about the people who were buried in mass graves. I'm talking about actual official numbers. 2,054 people were executed in 2025 by the Islamic regime. This is one of the highest numbers around the world. They use execution as a form of oppression and dehumanization, and they do it at the morning call to prayer. I'm not a Muslim. I know the time for the morning call to prayer in Iran because I know they execute people. That's another trauma that we carry. We have a lot of different times we try to make a name go viral in order to avoid them getting murdered and executed. Sometimes we don't even hear the name of the people who are executed. And it doesn't matter. When they want to execute people, they execute people at the morning call to prayer. And this is graphic for the people who don't know. They don't just execute people painlessly. They pull the person up from a crane. You're hanging there for about 10 minutes, suffocating on that crane. And they leave the body there for people to watch. It's trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma, because that's what works. There's a kind of violence in this regime that people don't understand. Sorry for cutting you off, Michael. It was
no, not at all. Not at all. Listen, we are trying to get every word you have to say out there so that people will gain a sense of understanding about just how evil this regime is. There's literally nothing they won't do to maintain power and to fulfill their apocalyptic end goal. Um, and I want to say that a lot of people who aren't Iranian, particularly those who are on the left side politically or they are Arab and Muslim, they are shocked that the vast, vast majority of the Iranian diaspora wanted a war. They wanted help from outside. They wanted intervention to put an end to the bloodshed. And for those who are still surprised, just listen to everything that she just said. People will ask, how can they possibly want America and Israel to strike Iran? Because the crimes that occur inside Iran at the hands of the IRGC far exceed any bloodshed that the United States and Israel would be willing to inflict on Iran.
People are
Speaking,
desperate. People are absolutely. We have tried. We tried everything. When people say, "But this war is not the answer," okay, what is the answer? You give me the answer. We'll do it. I'll do anything. At this point, I'll revert back to Islam and say a prayer 5 times a day if that helps. Tell us what to do. We've been getting slaughtered and massacred. The Islamic regime has shut down the internet. The country is at war and people do not have the internet. We don't have bomb shelters. There are no sirens. I remember the sirens from my time when I was 6 years old, 5 years old, and the TV would go flying and it would be red and it would say, this is not a drill, this is not a drill, it's an emergency. Seek shelter. They don't have it anymore, Michael. They know the bomb is coming from the sounds of the bombs coming. There's no internet. Israel would talk about how this part of Tehran, please just get out of this, evacuate, get out. And then you started saying, this is torture. You're torturing every single one outside Iran because people don't have the internet and we are screaming into the void and nobody can help us. Please stop. And thankfully they stopped. They're trying to help. They're trying to minimize the collateral damage, but it's not possible because people don't have the internet. Think about the country whose government would just shut down the internet during a war because they want to maximize the casualties. When Trump was talking about hitting the power plants, you're hitting people. That's not something that would make the regime stop. They will dance. They will be happy. They have this philosophy of scorched earth. They will scorch Iran to ashes before they let go. We tried everything. We got massacred 2 months ago. It was a genocide. It was an actual genocide because they came out and they killed anybody who was a kuffar. That was why it was a genocide. The intent was there to kill the non-Muslims. And that's why I use the word genocide intentionally. As you said, it was muharabeh. Anybody who comes out would be sentenced to death anyways. So they didn't need to have court dates and they needed to have judges say, oh, you're sentenced to death. You are sentenced to death. It was a genocide. They wanted to remove and eradicate all non-Muslims. The way they are going, if this war stops right now, if they actually negotiate with the regime, that scares the hell out of me. Because the wounded mullahs are the most scary thing on earth. They will take revenge from Iranians.
speaking of Iranians in the diaspora, um, Iranians come from all walks of life. There are Jewish Iranians, agnostic, atheist, Baha'i, Zoroastrian, Christian, Muslim Iranians in the diaspora who, you know, they have some differences between them, but one thing that they all seem to agree on is this regime has to go. And in no uncertain terms, they are telling people this is not about reform. You cannot reform a regime that butchers its own citizens wholesale. And not just butchers its own citizens, but brings in people from outside to butcher their own citizens. With all that being said, what are the goals that sometimes cause friction between the Iranian diaspora?
The biggest thing that is causing friction outside Iran is right now the monarchists and the non-monarchists who do not get along. And that's one of the problems that we have with the opposition. We don't have a very strong opposition because anybody who was really part of the opposition and was strong is either murdered or disappeared or terrorized into silence. The regime is very smart. That's the problem. That's one of the problems that people don't understand, Michael. They look at them and they think, oh, a bunch of mullahs, backward people, they don't know what they're doing. They are extremely smart and they have a lot of money. Iran is the fourth richest country on earth. The resources that they have, that they've been using for 47 years, and they can wreak havoc. And they are everywhere. They are here amongst the opposition. You don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know if you can trust people. There was a time when somebody joked about how if you want to drink water, you have to do a background check on the water that you're drinking to make sure that IRGC is not part of this whole water company whose water you're buying. And we are not joking. They are everywhere. They're money laundering. They infiltrate everywhere. And when you're part of the opposition, you don't know who to trust. When they tell me there's an Iranian involved, I instantly take 2 steps back. And I say, let me do my research. I don't know who you're talking about. I'm not going to trust them. This is my life we are talking about. I have had to say no to a lot of interviews because they have Iranians coming in on their board of the conversation that they want to have. I don't know these people. I don't trust them. I don't want to be in a room with them for 1 hour. It's how scared we are of the reality of our situation right now. The problem is they are everywhere and they are very smart. And the West just thinks, oh, they don't know what they're doing. They built subways and tunnels in mountains to carry bombs around. And we've been watching video after video, picture after picture coming out from inside Iran. And that's one of the reasons they cannot overthrow the regime. This regime, this is IRGC, is not just one person up there, you killed Khamenei, you're done. They are everywhere inside Iran and they're everywhere outside Iran. And we thought, they don't understand, they're stupid, we'll take over. No, we tried every which way possible. And at this point, the opposition outside Iran is in shambles. Sort of. I'm going to get hate for this, but we don't have a strong opposition because they know how to play games. They know how to manipulate to a point that we are novices. We don't know. We are not like them. We can't play like them. And trying to understand them only makes us evil like them. We try not to perpetuate evil and we try not to perpetuate violence, and then we end up losing this war. Like everything else.
Speaking of this war, the uprising reached a fever pitch between December and January, and it sort of bled into February a little bit. But by the time February came around, it had lost its steam, for lack of better words. And then this campaign by the USA and Israel began in late February. And it pains me to say this, but the right time to have started this campaign would have been between January and December and January, rather. I think what has happened now is that the indecisiveness, the USA dragging its feet, and not just dragging its feet, but also, we have to be honest, Trump gave out really mixed signals. He put out a tweet that said, "Help is on the way." But then he dragged his feet. And what that allowed to happen was that it allowed for A, Iranians to get butchered wholesale, and B, it allowed the IRGC to import its proxies from the surrounding countries to consolidate their power and to make sure that this doesn't happen again in the foreseeable future. In your opinion, was this a missed opportunity or action that was taken too late?
To me, it was a betrayal, Michael. And I talked about it, and a lot of people got really upset with me for saying it because he has a plan and he's going to do it and it's going to take time. If it's going to take time, if he has a plan, he should not say, "We are on the way. Help is on the way. We are coming." He said that. And then he went out and said, "It was a stampede. Nobody got killed." And we have body bags after body bags, like the nightmares that I'm having still to this day. And we'll have for years to come. Because we didn't even have time to mourn the dead. We lost over 40,000 people who actually believed him. Netanyahu said, "We are with you." And Iranians, for a lack of a better word, believe in Netanyahu more than they believe in their own government. Because we know our government kills us. And we thought we have help. We actually believe that we have help. And then they just stopped. Nothing happened. And the regime kept killing people. They kept executing people. They kept going to hospitals and shooting at people who were in hospitals for whatever reason, at point blank. And we kept crying for help, do something about it, for the world to actually see it. And all they did was arguing whether it's a genocide or if it's a crime against humanity, if they did anything at all. And then the governments were just standing there looking at this massacre, not believing it's happening. I'm not sure why. The dead bodies are there. There are videos of it. And they know this regime. But the fact that Trump kept going back and forth, and he's still doing that. He's still going back and forth with his negotiations, with what he wants to do. Yesterday he said, "Oh, we did the regime change already because we killed most of them at the top." That's not how regime change works. And I know he's the president of one of the biggest, most powerful countries in the world, but the way he's going ahead, if he negotiates with these people, he's gonna lose not just respect in his own country, he's gonna lose any standing that he has in the world. Because the regime now understands that they can attack 10 other countries in the region, nothing happens to them. They can kill, nothing happens to them. I talked about this, Khota and Tariya, in a video the other day. The West doesn't understand. They think now we are going to negotiate, we are going to sign a contract, we are good. All they need is for Trump to go away in the next election. And then they'll go back to their own games. They'll go back to creating all the uranium that they need for their bombs, if they haven't already. The West doesn't understand the way they operate, the regime operates. And to me, what happened was a betrayal. Because Iranians got massacred and they lost hope. And now the message is, come out, don't come out, come out, don't come out. Nobody's going to come out during a war. And when the war is done, when they negotiate, when they have the member of the IRGC they want to control in Iran, they will go back to oppressing Iranians. They will go back to murdering Iranians. And that's the message. Kill your people. Nobody cares. Don't do it to the rest of the world. It's dehumanizing. That's all it is. At this point, it's a betrayal.
It's hard to interpret it as anything other than a betrayal. And it's what I've been thinking about for the last several days. Um, on my own social media, it's tough for me to put out stuff stating how I feel about things currently, because I know that people are very emotional and they might not want to hear a hard truth. But the language coming out of the Trump administration, it's so alarming. And I've been saying for the last few days, brace for impact. He's gonna likely cut a bad deal. It's probably gonna happen. And so, Sarah, before we finish this interview, I have one more question I would like to ask you. If the world gets one more chance to stand on the right side of this, because the fight for Iranian freedom isn't over. This is not going to be the last stand. There will be another uprising. What can the West do differently to make sure that this is the last time the Iranians have to sacrifice their lives for freedom?
I really don't know if there will be another uprising, Michael. I don't know if we can get out of this, to be honest. And I know it's not something people want to hear. I know people understand what you say when you say you don't want to talk about it, because what do we say? That we give up? That we let evil win? So what's the difference between us and the evil that we don't fight anymore? We are doomed to fight for as long as this evil exists. But I don't know how we get out of this. I don't know if Iranians can come out of this. Like the number of young people who just tweet on and they post on X about how if the regime stays in power, they're just gonna kill themselves. And it's not just idle threats, it's real. You can see the desperation, you can feel it. What's the point? We keep getting massacred. And if the West actually wants to do something, they have to do it now. This is the time for them to do it. It shouldn't take us 4 years of lobbying and campaigning and working and trying so hard to get Europe to assign IRGC as a terrorist group. Why are there embassies still around the world? Why do they have embassies? Why are they not cutting off all these people? Send them to Iran. Stop appeasing them. Stop negotiating with them. You don't want to start a war? Okay, don't help our murderers. Don't empower them. That's all we've been asking all this time. And all they've done is sending them money, Obama sending them money, Biden sending them money. And then Trump saying, well, now China can buy their oil. Stop. Just stop thinking about what's good for you for a second and think about the 92 million Iranians who are held hostage. I haven't talked to my mom. In the past 23 days, I have talked to my mom for 45 seconds. And she's getting tapped. Like as soon as the line comes on and she says hi, I can hear the click. Because they're listening to everybody. There's no internet. There's no connection. She's spending a lot of money just to be able to contact me if she can contact me. And in 23 days, I've only talked to my mom for 45 seconds. The last Nowruz, Friday was our Nowruz. That was the first Nowruz in 43 years that I did not talk to my mom. It's the first day of spring for us. It's the happiest day. It has meanings. It's restarting. It's life. It's the beginning of everything again. And I couldn't talk to my mom for the first time in 43 years. And if you don't understand the reality of life that we are experiencing, try to understand the emotion. Try to understand that feeling of dread. I don't know if my parents are dead or alive. I don't know if my cousins are dead or alive. I still don't know who got killed 2 months ago. Because we haven't had time to catch up. And it's still martial law. If they actually want to do something, they have to do it now. If the West actually wants to wake up and stand on the right side of history, not for us. For them to be able to hold their head up 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and say, we did the right thing. For once in our lives, we did the right thing. Not because it benefited us or didn't, because it was the right thing to do. It's either freedom or death for the people of Iran. That's what they say. That's the slogan they write on the walls. Either democracy or death.
Sarah, thank you so much for being with me today. Thank you for being so generous with your time and discussing at length something that I know is deeply personal and heart wrenching. Really, my heart goes out to you and every Iranian in the world. This regime has to go. I don't know what it'll take to get rid of it, but it has to go. That's all I know. Once
Thank you,
again,
Michael.
thank you so much. And to the audience, thank you for joining us. Take care.
Thank you.